There's a kind of silence that visits men in their later years. It doesn't come with pain or noise. It slips in around 2 or 3 in the morning. The house is dark. Your wife's asleep, her breath steady. The hallway creaks under your feet. You've been here before again, too many nights in a row. You stand in the bathroom. You wait. You try to go. And what should be a simple thing, the kind of thing you didn't used to think about, turns into a moment of frustration or hesitation, or nothing at all. Sometimes it trickles. Sometimes it stings. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. And as you wash your hands again, you look into the mirror and wonder quietly, is this just what getting old feels like? I've met that silence many times. I've seen it in the tired eyes of farmers who built homes with their bare hands, in truckers who've driven cross-country longer than most marriages last, in veterans who don't flinch at war stories, but wince when they talk. About sleep. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton. I practiced urology for over 40 years, but more than that, I listened. And what I heard over and over again was this. I thought I was doing everything right. They eat their vegetables, they cut back on beer, they take their multivitamins, and some, bless them, even swap their chips and cookies for fruit. But here's the part no one told them. Some of that healthy fruit, it might be the very thing making their nights longer, their sleep shallower, and their prostate more inflamed. Now, don't get me wrong, fruit isn't the enemy, but context matters. As we age, the prostate, a small gland, often forgotten, becomes more sensitive to things like sugar, acidity, and even natural enzymes. What used to pass through our systems unnoticed now lingers, irritates, and inflames. Take pineapple, for example. I had a patient once, George, 68 years old, former firefighter, woke up 5 or 6 times a night, said he started eating pineapple because he read it had anti-inflammatory enzymes. Good for the gut, he said. And he was half right. Pineapple contains bromelain, an enzyme that can help in some situations. But what George didn't know was that bromelain also increases blood flow to the pelvic region. And when your prostate is already swollen and your tissues are irritated, that extra blood flow isn't healing. It's like pouring gasoline on a low flame. The result? More swelling, more pressure, more urgency. Pineapple also carries a hefty load of natural sugar fructose, which doesn't spike like a candy bar, but over time stirs the same kind of silent inflammation in sensitive tissues. And let's not forget its acidity. Your mouth might like that tropical tang, but your bladder doesn't. That acid can irritate the lining of the urinary tract. Add that to a prostate that's already encroaching on the urethra, and you've got the perfect recipe for a night of half-emptying, false starts, and bathroom trips that feel like they never end. When George took a break from pineapple just a couple weeks, he slept through the night for the first time in months. It wasn't magic. It was just one less trigger for a body that had already had enough. If you're listening to this and something's clicking, type 1. If you're unsure or just taking it in, type 0. Either way, I'm grateful you're here. Because knowledge like this isn't about fear. It's about permission. Permission to rethink the stories we've been told about healthy. Permission to trust our bodies when something feels off. Permission to age with awareness, not just acceptance. And pineapple? It's just the beginning. There's another group of fruits that show up in breakfast bowls across America. Sweet, bright, zesty. They wake us up in the morning. They look beautiful in a glass. Oranges, lemons, grapefruits, all those citrus wonders. Now, I'm not going to tell you to never touch an orange again, but I want you to think about this. Citrus fruits are highly acidic, and while that bite might be part of what we love for men dealing with an enlarged prostate, it can be a quiet aggravator. That acid doesn't just pass through. It scrapes sometimes, literally against the urinary tract lining. If your bladder or prostate is already irritated, that tangy hit can make things worse. Burning, urgency, that nagging sensation that you need to go even if you just went 10 minutes ago. There's also the issue of sugar. Again, natural sugar, but still sugar. And for a man whose immune system is already on high alert, whose prostate is responding to years of subtle shifts in hormones, inflammation, and tissue growth, even small, daily irritants can build up into symptoms you can't ignore. I remember another man, a retired school teacher named Frank, still sharp as a tack at 73. He'd start every day with a glass of orange juice, called it liquid sunshine. But his nights were rough, tossing and turning. He'd go to bed tired and wake up exhausted. He tried everything, supplements, teas, adjusting his bedtime routine. But the change didn't come until he swapped out that morning orange juice for a small pear and some oatmeal. 2 weeks later, he told me, "It's like my bladder finally stopped yelling at me." Not every man reacts the same way, but most men never even think to question citrus. We were told it boosts immunity, keeps us strong. But strength, at our age, comes from listening as much as doing. That's what this journey is about. Not giving things up just because we're older, but noticing what helps and what quietly hurts. Choosing peace over habit, comfort over ritual. And if you're finding this helpful, or even if it's just making you pause, consider subscribing. Not because you have to, but because somewhere down the line, a small bit of understanding like this might give you back a full night of sleep, or an uninterrupted walk, or a morning without rushing to the bathroom before your coffee cools. Next, we'll talk about a fruit you've probably eaten your whole life. Soft, yellow, and comforting. But like so many things in life, even comfort can come with consequences. Let's keep going. Bananas. Most men don't think twice about them. They're easy on the stomach, easy to carry, soft on the teeth. And if you grew up like many of us did in a house where food wasn't wasted, a ripe banana was a kind of everyday blessing. I had one man, Roger, a former factory foreman, 70 years old, said he kept bananas stocked like some folks stock batteries. One with breakfast, one after lunch. "They're good for me," he said. "Natural, filling, keeps things regular." And he was right mostly. Bananas are rich in potassium, and potassium helps with blood pressure, muscle health, even nerve function. But too much of a good thing, especially when your kidneys are slowing down, can turn into a quiet kind of trouble. See, our bodies don't handle electrolytes the same way after 60. If your kidneys aren't filtering efficiently, that extra potassium can hang around longer, drawing in water, shifting fluid retention, especially in the lower belly, right where your prostate lives. It's like overwatering a garden that's already flooded. Roger was waking up 3 times a night. Said he felt full down there, even when he hadn't had much to drink. I asked him about his diet. When we cut back his banana intake from 2 a day to 3 a week, the pressure eased. It wasn't dramatic, but it was real. A slow loosening, a quiet relief. Now, there's another piece to this banana puzzle, one that doesn't get talked about much. Bananas contain plant sterols compounds that mimic hormones in small, subtle ways. And for men whose testosterone is already declining, even a slight hormonal disruption can throw off the body's balance. More estrogen-like signals, less testosterone tone. That can nudge inflammation higher, and when your prostate's already on edge, it doesn't take much to tip it over. Again, I'm not telling you to throw away your bananas. Just listen. Maybe that morning banana is fine. Maybe you can cut back. Maybe you swap it for half an avocado or some berries now and then. The truth is, no one food is the enemy, but in a body that's changing, everything interacts. That's where awareness becomes a kind of medicine. Now, let me tell you about a fruit that feels like summer itself. Watermelon. It brings back memories, doesn't it? Cookouts, porch swings, that first bite that runs down your chin. Watermelon is joy, pure and simple. But when it comes to an aging bladder and an enlarged prostate, that joy comes with a cost. Watermelon is more than 90% water. That's what makes it so refreshing. But for a man with BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, that hydration isn't always a blessing. I had a patient once, Luis, Vietnam vet, lived alone, ate clean, walked every morning. He'd eat a bowl of watermelon every night, said it helped him stay hydrated without having to drink so much water. But he was getting up 5-6 times a night. His bladder was full, but it wasn't emptying fully. That's the tricky part about BPH. The prostate presses on the urethra, narrowing the passage. So even when you think you're done, you're not. Add a high-water fruit like watermelon into the mix, you're just pouring more into a cup that can't empty. Luis made one small change. He moved his watermelon to lunchtime, gave his body hours to process the fluids before bed. The result? 2 fewer bathroom trips at night. And that meant something more than sleep. It meant freedom. It's not just the water, either. Watermelon, like most sweet fruits, contains natural sugar. And sugar, even when it's wrapped in a pretty red package, still contributes to inflammation, especially when eaten in larger amounts or too close to bedtime. So ask yourself this: do you feel more pressure at night when you've had watermelon after dinner? Do you wake up groggy, dehydrated, frustrated? Sometimes the answer isn't a pill. Sometimes it's just timing, awareness. That's what I told Luis. That's what I'd tell you too. Now, let's turn to a fruit that's even smaller, but no less sneaky. Grapes. Tiny, poppable, sweet, easy. A bowl of grapes feels like nothing, just a handful here, a handful there. But for men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, it can add up quickly. One man I remember, Sam, a former train conductor, used to eat grapes while watching television. Said they helped him avoid ice cream. They're healthy, he said. Better than cookies. And they are, in many ways. But here's where it gets tricky. Grapes are high in sugar. Not the scary, processed kind, but sugar nonetheless. And sugar, over time, fuels systemic inflammation. That means every tissue already under stress, like your prostate, is more likely to swell. And grapes have tannins. That's a word most people associate with wine, but it's in the fruit itself, too. Tannins can irritate the bladder lining. For some men, that means more frequency. For others, more urgency. And for nearly all, less restful sleep. Sam didn't want to stop eating grapes. So we made a deal, half the portion, and only before 5 p.m. 3 weeks later, he told me, "I'm still waking up once, but it's better." And that makes everything feel better. That's the magic of small changes. You're not giving up sweetness. You're just spacing it out, paying attention. You don't need a spreadsheet or a strict diet, just a little curiosity. A willingness to notice how food makes you feel, not 10 minutes after, but 6 hours after, especially in the quiet hours of night. And let me say this clearly. I'm not here to scare you away from fruit. I believe in fruit. But not all fruit is your friend when your body's fighting for balance. And sometimes, the ones we trusted most, the pineapple, the orange, the banana, can be the very things pushing us just over the edge into discomfort, unrest, and frustration. You deserve better than that. You deserve to sleep through the night, to walk without urgency, to live without scanning for the nearest restroom. And often, that starts not with medicine, but with mindfulness. That's what I've seen over and over again. If this is helping you think differently, even just a little, consider subscribing. Not because I said so, but because the next insight might give you back something you thought was gone. And if you're still with me, thank you. We've gone through 5 fruits now, each with their own story, their own impact. But where do you go from here? Let's take a breath. And in the next part, we'll bring it all together so you can move forward with confidence, calm, and maybe even a full night's rest. Let's take a moment. Just sit with everything we've talked about. Not to worry, not to overcorrect, but to consider, quietly, the truth that's often overlooked. That your body is trying to talk to you. And sometimes, it speaks in whispers. A midnight trip to the bathroom. A slow, stuttering stream. That tired feeling that never fully lifts. These are not random. They're not punishments. They're messages. And the foods we choose, even the good ones, can either calm those messages or make them louder. That's the gift and the challenge of growing older. You've earned the right to enjoy what you eat. But now, your body asks for something else in return. Presence. Attention. And believe me, I've seen what happens when a man starts listening. I remember one gentleman, Walter. He was 76, a former bridge builder, lived alone after his wife passed. He told me he'd been watching my videos, making small changes. "Cut out the oranges," he said. "Save the pineapple for Sundays only." He looked tired when I first met him, but after a few months, less bloated, sleeping deeper, even smiling more. Not because he became a health nut, but because he felt like himself again. That's what this is really about. Not perfection, not punishment, but reclaiming your rhythm. Now, let's bring it all together, not with rules, but with reflection. If you've been struggling with your prostate, if your nights are broken by urgency, if your days are punctuated by discomfort, there's one thing I want you to remember. You're not broken. Your body is adjusting, rebalancing, responding to a new phase of life. And in that phase, some foods, especially fruits we once thought were untouchable, might need a second look. Pineapple, with its sugar and enzyme load, may stir inflammation. Citrus, with its acid bite, might inflame the bladder lining. Bananas, rich in potassium, can strain the fluid balance in some older men. Watermelon, though refreshing, may overwhelm an already sluggish bladder. And grapes, sweet and innocent, might quietly push your symptoms past the edge. None of them are bad. They simply require context. The same way a pair of shoes that fit you in your 30s won't fit your feet in your 70s, even if they're beautifully made. Your food needs to fit the body you have now. So what can you do? You can pause. You can notice. You can try swapping citrus for berries, low in sugar, high in antioxidants. You can enjoy your watermelon earlier in the day, not after dinner. You can limit your banana intake to a few times a week, not twice a day. You can portion your grapes or replace them with sliced pear. You can listen. And if something doesn't feel right, you don't need to power through it. You can adjust, without shame, without fear, because that's the wisdom that comes with age. You've already survived the hardest decades. You've raised children, buried friends, worked through pain most men never speak of. If your body is asking for less pineapple or fewer late-night grapes, maybe it's not a sacrifice. Maybe it's a kind of kindness. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to throw out your fruit bowl or become a nutritionist. You just need to notice, one thing at a time. Like Harold, who let go of his daily pineapple and finally slept through the night. Or Dennis, who swapped out orange juice and found his mornings calmer. Or Sam, who halved his grapes and found 2 extra hours of uninterrupted rest. Or Walter, who reclaimed something he thought was gone: peace. These are real men, with real stories, just like you. And if their lives can change with a few mindful choices, so can yours. So if this message touched you even a little, perhaps share it, quietly, as it was shared with you, with a friend, a brother, a neighbor, still up at 3 a.m., pacing softly toward the bathroom, wondering if this is just the way it is. Let him know it doesn't have to be. There's always a path forward. And it begins with listening not just to advice or doctors, but to your own body, to the quiet wisdom you've carried all along. And if you'd like more of these quiet conversations, ones made for men like you, consider subscribing. I'll be here, as long as you keep listening. Thank you for your time, and take care of yourself.